Vocal tract shaping. Vocal tract shaping basically is the shaping of the vowels themselves and how they feel in the throat. Now we just came off all vowel sounds stem from it's the la, ah. It's the most large, robust, big, or I say long in the vowel. It's the longest. The pharynx is as wide as it can be, and the larynx is as long as it can be for the shape of the vowel itself. Okay. Now we talk about the pharynx and the larynx. I'm going to get into explaining that in a minute. But the ah vowel is, think of this like your throat. Now I want you to sort of picture something for a minute. Okay. If you've ever seen how a lot of sports figures work out, and you see that little sort of ladder on the grass in the sand, and they kind of run through the steps of this ladder, and they take really small, fast steps back. You know, they get their agility back and forth from this ladder. Now imagine if they took these huge steps, there'd be all this wasted motion or wasted energy of them stepping outside this ladder. So they stay very small and light on their feet and real, I call it the Porsche engine of singing, so to speak. It's not the big Hemi or the big American car engine. It's the small Porsche or very small compression kind of engine. So we want the same concept in the throat. We don't want big transitions in the throat. We want to keep them all tight and simple and closely related. So it's the path of least resistance in the most closely related vowels, how we win and how we do awesome at this. So in the back of the throat is shaped with the ah vowel. Now ah is ah with just a little smile. Now the larynx drops a little bit, ah, right? Ah, ah. And the pharynx is widened. So a little smile, ah, ah. Now, A is just ah with a little more smile. So we have ah, a. Ah, a. Now we have E, which is just A with a little more smile. Ah, E. Ah, E. Now, O and U, remember I said all vowel sounds stem from it's the la, ah, except for E and U. Now, it's actually not true because U does share part of the ah family of vowels, where E is kind of its own animal. It's more closely related to A, and we're going to talk about that again more later as well. But ah, o is ah. We just close it down a little bit. The whole thing exactly the same way. Ah, oh, it's not pharyngally spread more. It's just a little closure. So ah, o, and u. Now a trick, for example, I use all the time is I will rarely go ooh and go straight to an oo vowel. I'll use o as a transitional vowel to open up the throat first. Home. Did you hear that quick little transition? I went oh, and I hit it real quick. Home. That's true for E. I rarely go E and hit pure E. I'll use 8 or A to get me there. A, hey, home. Right? So I'm using an open throat technique to keep the throat open to then relax into a closed state or to close that vowel down. So now I want you to see an example of this because this is going to be really cool. So I want to first I'm going to sing through the vowel so you can see how little change there is in the vowel. I'm going to go do you see how little change there was in those vowels? Or let me do it so I'm not shouting at you. Now, by the way, I remembered my breath. I had my rib cage expansion. I'm using all the strength in my abdomen. I'm not just only focusing on the throat. So again, Simon says, when we go back to this stuff, always go back to everything. Checkpoint. Always go back to the stuff that we've learned. Now, I'm going to come up close and personal. I've got a flashlight, and I'm going to flash you in the back of my throat as I go through these vowel sounds. Now, before I do this, I want to talk about two important things. A lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people, when I ask them to do it's the la, ah, and to train the ah vowel, as they start to ascend, the floorboard, or what I call the soundboard or floorboard of the larynx starts to raise on them. So here's what happens. They go, and they get this real froggy sound because that soundboard starts to lift. Well, what we want to do is force or train that soundboard to stay in a lowered laryngeal position first. Eventually, we will relax that position in mostly a neutral state. Now, if you're an internet search guy and you look around and say, you know, we should always sing in a neutral state for the laryngeal position, or the larynx should always be neutral, that's actually not true at all. In fact, oftentimes I go, and baby, oh, you know, like I kind of like that froggy sound. Sometimes Glenn Hughes uses it, Paul Rogers uses it, Paul Carrick uses it, pop stars like Rihanna, and I could give you dozens and dozens of examples of people that use it for a specific tone or texture. Now you'll notice though, the higher up you go, the more you're not able to use that sound because it constricts the throat. So we use it for texture and flavor and color. Most people do it to constrict the throat, to be able to squeeze off the throat to try to get to those vowels when we want to keep the throat completely open. So I'm going to come up right now. I got my little flashlight here, and I'm going to show you what the back of the throat looks like. Now, you're going to notice that the uvula will rise. The more I go up in the scale, the uvula itself will rise, and the back of the throat, the soft palate, is going to create like a V shape. Now, I keep my tongue flush to the base of the ground. In fact, I even concave it a little bit in the jaw and the throat. So watch really closely as I do this. I'm going to sing these scales. Ah, ah, ah. Now, I want you to notice something else. Now, I just did the ah vowel. You saw how much the uvula moved up and down, and then you saw how much the soft palate. So you want to train your throat to do that, to create the maximum amount of space so we can have resonance in the back of the throat, to, you know, create resonance and to create those God-given amphitheaters. When we hit these vowel modifications, it's sort of like these amphitheaters God has given us where we, in the back of the throat, when they finally sit, it sounds like you're soaking in reverb, right? But I want you to now look at the vocal tract itself when I go through my vowels. Notice how little change there is. Like, except for when the tongue comes up on A, the vocal tract itself, or the throat itself, actually stays really consistent. It's not like it moves around a lot, right? So I want you guys to really get in front of a mirror, and as you're going through your vowel sounds, now, by the way, the modifications, these vowel modifications, we're going to get into this here in a bit. I actually close the sound down a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more as we go up. But as we come back down, we have to learn and train to reopen those vowels on the way back down so that we don't cover or darken a sound on the bottom, which inhibits our ability to go back up on the next passage or phrase that we do. Okay? So let's continue.